Here we have the Darley PSE 1500 gallon per minute trailer mounted engine driven fire pump. Again, this is a Darley model P pump, single input impeller that is engine driven using this Cummins engine. Again, this pump is capable of 1500 gallons per minute. And this will be a short operating video here to show how to operate and how to service this trailer mounted engine. We've got a 50-gallon diesel fuel tank. You can see here, this is the fuel fill. Here's our fuel gauge and our vent for our fuel tank. We've also got a couple of inline valves that need to be opened for your supply and your return line on this diesel fuel tank. Got a couple of 12-volt batteries here for powering the engine, as well as our primer system and the electronics for this engine and pumping system. Here we have a trailer mounted Darley PSE 1500 gallon per minute fire pump. This is a direct engine driven fire pump with a 2-gear Darley gearbox that drives the impeller inside the Darley volute and pushes water up into this 4-discharge Darley discharge head with an integral built-in check valve here in the center of that fire pump. You can see we've got pressure gauges, our suction gauge that will show you the incoming vacuum or the pressure at the intake of the pump, as well as the 4 individual discharge gauges for these 4 discharge valves. We've got some test equipment hooked up on this as we're getting ready to do some initial testing here now. You can see the Darley relief valve, the discharge relief valve, mounted here on the side of the engine, right behind the fire pump. We have a electronic control for starting and operating this this Cummins engine. It's a diesel-powered engine. It gets its power from a couple of batteries that will be mounted up here ahead of the engine, and then this is the diesel fuel tank. Ahead of the diesel fuel tank at the front of the trailer here, we have a DZ toolbox. This is a powder-coated aluminum toolbox in the front for storage of all your gear, maybe some loose hose. We also have an auto charge battery charging system. You can plug in a connector here to 120 volts. Put 120 volts of AC power here, and it will keep your 2 batteries charged up. It's an auto disconnect, and we've hooked this auto disconnect up to the cable here that you'll connect into the vehicle. And as soon as the vehicle senses the brakes have been applied on the vehicle, the power cord that's connected to that auto eject will then eject so that you do not drive out of the station with that cord connected. So again, that cord can be connected to power up the batteries, and at the moment you step on the brakes to put your vehicle into drive to start to tow this trailer, if you haven't already manually unplugged this cord, it will automatically eject. I want to take a second to discuss some of the controls here. As I stated before, I'll give you an introduction and a little bit of description as to how the discharge relief valve works here in a few minutes. We've also got a keyed ignition shown here in the on position. When you turn it to the on position, you'll get power to your relief valve, you'll get power to your panel lights, and you'll see that your display will start to give you some readouts. We've got RPM, voltmeter, the temperature of the cooling liquid, as well as the oil pressure in the engine. And all of these are adjustable to whatever parameters you want to pay attention to. At some point here, once we have the pump primed, we will then start the engine. Once the vehicle engine's running, we can control the speed of the engine with the increase and decrease button. Another control here on the fire pump that's important is the primer control, shown here. This primer control, as with any primers, you will pull to prime the vehicle, or to prime the pump, and then when you're done priming, you can push this T-handle back in to make sure that it's closed. So the reason for the primer is to evacuate any air in this 6-inch intake hose that's going down through our floor into an underground water source. So again, we're going to use that primer and draw the air out of that suction, because with any centrifugal water pump, we want to make sure that we have water in the impeller prior to the pump being started, prior to the pump being rotated and spinning once the vehicle engine is operated. So we want to prime first and then start the engine. Another component here in this pumping system is the master drain. We have a master drain which is connected to all of the various low points in the pump that may need draining, and this pulling out on this master drain will drain those devices. So we'll drain the water out of this fire pump here, and then we'll prime, showing me how you prime this fire pump. It's now closed. This is that pull to prime device, which actuates an electric motor, which is around here. Here is the 12-volt electric primer. You can see it's an all bronze and stainless steel construction. This is the motor that creates a vacuum whenever the pull to prime T-handle is actuated back at the pump. Here is that pull to prime T-handle shown now in the closed position. To prime the pump, you simply pull out on the T-handle. Pulling on the T-handle will draw water up into the suction of the pump. Once the pump is primed, the primer will evacuate the water underneath the trailer. More? Okay, now we're going to go ahead and start the engine. First, turn the key switch from the off position to the on position. You want to wait to start until the light goes out. Once the light has gone out, you can start the vehicle engine, or start the pump engine. Now that the engine is operating, to increase the RPM, use the toggle switch, bring it to the run position. And then you increase the RPM by pushing up on the middle toggle switch. Increase the RPM by pushing down. So we recommend increasing it to a firefighting pressure around 100 psi. Then if you want to return the vehicle to idle, you can just flip the run idle switch back to the idle position. And then shut off the pump by turning the key switch back to off. Alright, we're going to do another run through here of the unit, starting with priming of this 6-inch suction hose. We're going to go here to the pull to prime valve. Bring water up into our suction. Once you hear that tone change, you know you've got water all the way up to the impeller. I've got all the discharge valve closed, the master drain is closed. We're going to go ahead and turn the ignition switch to the first position until our wait to start and our stop engine lights go out. We can then start the engine. We're going to be in the idle mode to start with. Your display will give you some of your vehicle data. You can turn this to the run position. Now you'll get some of your vehicle data showing you RPM, coolant temperature, oil pressure, and your voltmeter. We could increase the vehicle speed. And we'll start some water flowing. We're at about 50 psi. Decrease the throttle or switch to idle. And then shut the engine off using the keyed power switch. With any Cummins engine, if it comes time to service the engine, I just want to give you a quick tutorial on how to remove the side panel. You simply push in on the clamp, release the clamp, open it. Same on the back side, release the clamp, pull it to the open position, open the clamp. Firmly grab a hold of your two handles, lift up, out on the unit. You can lift up on that unit and lift it off to the side. Put it somewhere where it's safe in the time being. Once you have that panel removed, there's a variety of different controls that you can now access on this pumping engine. You have the starter unit here on this right side of the unit. You've also got your engine oil filter, Mounted here, you've got your alternator for creating the 12-volt battery charging whenever this engine's running. You've got your access to your turbo, your intake pipe. So there's not really much that needs to be serviced on this side of the unit. The other side of the unit is where your oil dipstick is, and a few other components. So we'll take a look at those now. As I had mentioned here on the left side of the unit, we have your oil fill, your dipstick for checking your oil level. You've also got your fuel filter and your fuel primer down here in the lower corner of this engine area. And then again, you have your primer down here as well. This is probably the most critical filter on the system, in that depending upon the air that this vehicle engine is breathing, this air filter is going to need to be maintained on a regular basis. You want to make sure that you keep this filter serviced. You're going to keep a good clean air filter in there that will extend the life of this pumping engine. The Darley primer is designed to run for short periods without any lubrication whatsoever. But if you're going to be doing any long priming operations where the primer needs to run for more than, say, 20 seconds, it's highly recommended that you fill this primer lubricant tank with Darley Prime Green. It's an environmentally friendly antifreeze that provides very good lubricating properties while operating the primer unit. So again, fill this unit with Darley Prime Green, and it will extend the life of your Darley primer. On the front of the engine, just behind the batteries on the other side of the fuel tank, you've got your intake to your radiator. It's a good idea to keep this area clean. You don't want to be stacking hose or other equipment in front of your radiator, as that is where the engine gets its clean, cool air from for cooling of the unit. So keep that area open and clean.